Hey guys, welcome back to Quick Code. Today we're doing another Brainstellar Quant puzzle. This one is called Chess Tournament. It's a medium problem of probability type. You guys can pause and go over the problem. So basically, it's a knockout tournament where there's n players and n is a proper power of 2, right? Now each round the number of players goes from n to n by 2. So if this was 2 to the power k, then for the next round it's going to be 2 to the power k minus 1, and this just goes on all the way up until there's eventually just one player left. So there's going to be two players left, then one player left. So the way the tournament works is each player has already been assigned a skill, and for two players playing against each other, let's say that's P6 and P11. Well, P6 is gonna win always because P6 has a better skill than P11 according to this ordering over here. And basically, we've been asked the probability that P1 and P2 will meet in the final level. Well, first of all, let's focus on the line given over here that at each level, random pairs are formed. Now, what does this mean? Well, you'd imagine that initially you've got n people over here, and from this group, you pick out random pairs, right? You make random pairs and you make them play against each other, and then this becomes n by 2 people, and then from that group, you again pick out random pairs and make them play against each other, and then this process keeps on continuing. Well, this is basically a complicated way of saying that we create a tournament fixing. Now, what do I mean by tournament fixing? So, basically, how a knockout tournament works is we initially assign each player a position in the first round. And by a position, I basically mean we're distributing the n players among these positions over here, right? And then we make them play against each other. So P1 and P2, for example, will play against each other according to this distribution. And let's say P1 wins. And over here it was P3 and P4. Then P3 would win, obviously. P3 comes here. And then these two would play. And then P1 would get ahead, would come to the next round. And so on, the process just keeps on continuing. The statement that we are basically selecting random pairs at each level is completely identical to creating a random distribution of these n players at the start among these two slots that are shown over here, and then just let them play a tournament as it would play out, right? It is most important to understand this fact over here, that the statement that choosing random pairs is basically identical to saying we distribute the n players among this particular sorting as shown over here. So now the question basically becomes that based on any random sorting of the n players, what is the probability that P1 and P2 reach the finals? Now, if you think about it, P1 is always going to reach the finals no matter what. And now P2 only has a chance of reaching the finals if he started in the bracket which was the other half than the bracket P1 it was in. So if P1 was in this bracket, then P2 had to be in this bracket. Or if P1 was in this bracket, then P2 had to be in this bracket. Because if P2 is in the same bracket as P1, then P1 and P2 are eventually gonna have to duel each other before reaching the finals. The only way P2 can reach the finals is if P2 is in a bracket where he doesn't have to face P1 up until the very last match. And P2 doesn't have to worry about any other player because P2 can only be defeated by P1. For all the other players, P3 all the way up to Pn, P2 is gonna beat them. So this basically becomes a question of what is the probability that P1 and P2 are in different halves when we order the n players randomly. So this here becomes the new question. This is essentially what we have to figure out. Now, if you think about it, let's just make two halves first of all, right? Now, the n players are to be distributed among these n by 2 groups, right? For the initial distribution. So let's just give P1 any one random half for now. Now, talking about P2, right? The P2 could either go in any of these n minus 1 remaining slots. So the total number of possible slots or positions that P2 can take up are n minus 1, right? Since there's n by 2 minus 1 slots over here and n by 2 slots over here. But the favorable outcomes or the outcomes that satisfy this condition over here are where P2 takes up the other half than which P1 is in. So that would mean all of these slots. And these slots are n by 2 in number. So this becomes our equation. This is the probability that we were calculating. Favorable outcomes are when P2 takes up a slot which is in the other half than which P1 is in, upon all the possible slots that P2 could have taken up, which would have been all of these n minus 1 remaining slots. So this becomes our probability for the case where P1 and P2 will meet in the finals, right? Because saying P1 and P2 will meet in the finals essentially means that P1 and P2 are in different halves during the initial distribution, which basically boils down to this number of favorable outcomes upon all total outcomes, which comes out to be n by 2 over n minus 1. The crux of the problem. I hope you guys understood the solution, and thanks for watching.